I started a pest control company in 2014. The very first vehicle that we purchased was several years old and had tens of thousands of miles on it. Now, I would never do that now. I only buy brand new vehicles and I buy them in fleet sizes. So I'll order vehicles in the winter months, even though I won't need them until the spring. And I buy them in bulk. But don't do that in the beginning. Buy things on an as-needed basis.
Allan has started and grown several multi-million-dollar businesses. His mission is to help you do the same. Welcome to the Business Growth Pod, building the future one entrepreneur at a time.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Business Growth Pod. I'm your host, Allan Draper. Very excited to be here with you. I'm back from Idaho, where I spent the last couple of months with my family. So happy to be back in the heat of Arizona and happy to be back in my studio and in my work environment so I can get a little more back to the grind. We have a really good episode scheduled for today. I'm going to be talking about the top 3 reasons why businesses fail and exact steps that you can follow to avoid those reasons and stay in business and succeed with your business. Before we get to that, make sure that you follow my Instagram, Real Allan Draper. Make sure that you check out what's going on with me online, but especially on LinkedIn and Instagram. Make sure to follow me. I recently switched up my Instagram, and I think at some point I'm going to have a podcast episode regarding the reasons why I did that, why I completely started over when I had over 30,000 followers, and why I started brand new, and we can get into that. But make sure to follow me, Real Allan Draper. And if you have questions, DM me on Instagram. Let's connect. I'm happy to help you with your businesses. Okay, let's get into it. So today we're going to talk about the top 3 documented reasons why businesses fail. And I'm going to give you some pointers, some firsthand experience, a couple of stories that I'll share about my own experience and my own businesses, and some things that you can do to ensure your success in business. Now, ultimately, those of us who are entrepreneurs, one of the things that appeals us about business is this risk-reward relationship. We like the idea that we are going to work hard for a certain amount of time and we are going to receive an immense amount of benefit from starting a business and putting ourselves on the line, just throwing ourselves out there and risking a stable job, a stable paycheck, benefits, or whatever else comes with a more typical 9-to-5. I know personally, I'm of the personality that besides me not being able to put food on the table for my family, it would be very difficult for me to go back to a 9-to-5. I would never do it professionally, but that's my personality. I also believe that entrepreneurs are unique, that people that want to start businesses, whether it's one or multiple, that we have a different type of personality, that we want to take on that risk, and that ultimately, and I want to make sure you hear this, not everyone is an entrepreneur. Not everyone should start a business. I don't like some out there that say that everyone should start a business. I am not in that camp. And we're going to talk about a couple of those reasons today as we talk about the top 3 reasons why businesses fail and some things and some tips and tricks that we can employ in our businesses to make sure that that doesn't happen, or at least increase the probability that it doesn't. Because the statistics, to be honest with you, they are against you. They are against us. I'm going to share a little bit about my failures toward the end of the episode, so you don't want to miss that. At the very last part of this, I'm going to share a specific example of how I failed in business. So according to research by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, about 20% of new businesses fail within the first year. So that means, just another way of saying it, that 1 in 5 businesses will fail within its first 12 months. So think about that. A lot of us have friends that have started businesses. I know hundreds of people that have started businesses, and 1 in 5 of them will fail within that first year. Now, I know on the flip side of that, I know a lot of people that have started businesses and been very successful. So keep in mind that as I'm talking about kind of the downside, some of the things that a lot of entrepreneurs don't like to talk about, they just like to put it to the side. I am 100% optimistic for entrepreneurs, even in the current market. I read just this morning. So today I'm recording this on July 28th. It's going to be dropped after that. But just this morning I was reading that inflation is starting to curb a little bit. We just got numbers, I believe it was just yesterday. And while the prime rate went up another 0.25%, so now the prime rate is at 8.5%, inflation is starting to ease a little bit, and they're anticipating that interest rates will go down starting at the end of this year. And another positive thing is that for business owners is that salaries and wages have started to kind of ease up a little bit, making the labor market a little more friendly for business owners and entrepreneurs. So I'm very optimistic about entrepreneurship as a whole, but I'm also very opportunistic and optimistic about the current environment with entrepreneurship and business. So we're going to be talking about a few things that might make us uncomfortable, might make us a little nervous, might make us a little fearful. But the idea behind this is that we're not going to bury our heads in the sand. We're going to take these things head on so that we can be more successful and we can increase our chances of being successful with starting our businesses. So after you get through the first year, studies show that 20% failure rate is actually going to decrease. By the end of year 5, 50% of businesses are going to fail. And then by the 10th year, about 70% of businesses. And that sounds like it's a larger number, but if you think about it, it's a lower number per year, because if 20% failed for the first year and for every year after that, for the first 5 years, 100% of businesses would be out of business. And that doesn't make any sense. So 50% by year 5. So what that means is you got to find a way to hold on. We're going to talk about the top 3 reasons why businesses fail, but keep this idea in mind. Number 1, stay optimistic. Number 2, do whatever it takes to keep the lights on. I'm going to give you some tips and tricks, some things that I've learned, but that's the key. I say all the time that when you're trying to keep your head above water, you don't really care what your swimming stroke looks like. That's especially true in business. Sometimes it's not pretty. Sometimes you look at other businesses and you think they have it all figured out, but they don't. I've been a business consultant for several years now, and I've seen business from the outside and from the inside, including all of my businesses. But for some reason, when we look at other people's businesses, we're like, oh man, they really have it figured out. And a lot of times when you get behind that proverbial curtain, you see a lot of things that you're like, oh, okay, that's kind of surprising. I thought that they would be better organized. I thought they would have a better protocol. I thought they would be better from a legal standpoint or a financial position. And it's just not the case. So the big thing is you've got to keep your head above water. We're going to talk about that. So number 1 reason why businesses fail is poor financial management. The second most common reason why businesses fail is because there's a lack of market demand or product market fit. And number 3 top reason why businesses fail is because of ineffective leadership and management. So let's go through those one by one. So number 1, poor financial management. I have 5 tips for you to avoid this common theme. And this is a common issue with businesses, not just the first year, but going into perpetuity. The number 1 reason why businesses fail is because of a lack of cash flow. There are things that you can do to prevent this. Number 1, make sure that you have a strong focus on revenue. A lot of times I've consulted businesses that, man, they have their ducks in a row with their product or with their service or with their personnel. They'll write up pages and pages of SOP, standards of procedure, of protocols, training, all this stuff. And then I'll ask them about revenue. I remember one time I was on this call, a consulting call with an individual that was starting a home service business. And he had his ducks in a row, hadn't even opened his doors. And for about 15 minutes, he told me about all the things that he had organized. I was very impressed. And then it hit me. wait, we've been talking for this entire time and he hasn't mentioned one thing about marketing/sales. How is he going to bring revenue into the door? And I said, hey, that's all great. Your growth plan is great. Your hiring strategy, I think that's great, spot on. Your culture, talking about all these important things. How are you going to get customers? Silence. He hadn't thought about that. And I think it's pretty common. And even those that do start a business and think about revenue, a lot of times they're not putting enough emphasis on it. Don't make yourself feel bad because you're thinking about revenue. A lot of times as business owners, we're called greedy. We're called all these things. We're, self-interested or whatever. And the truth is, if your business doesn't make money, then the people that work for it or that potentially could work for it, they're not going to have a job. Don't feel guilty about that. Number one, focus on getting revenue through the door. And don't stop that focus even once you've generated some revenue and you're up and rolling. Make sure to continue that focus. It doesn't stop. That need doesn't cease. Number two, overspending. A lot of entrepreneurs will think, hey, I have a business. I have to just start spending on things. And that's true. And we're going to talk about that in the number three reason. But make sure that you're very careful, especially in that first year, with ensuring that your decisions are based on research and on the needs of the company. Don't buy flashy stuff. Don't buy the newest and greatest technology. I started a pest control company in 2014. The very first vehicle that we purchased was several years old and had tens of thousands of miles on it. Now, I would never do that now. I only buy brand new vehicles and I buy them in fleet sizes. So I'll order vehicles in the winter months, even though I won't need them until the spring, and I buy them in bulk. But don't do that in the beginning. Buy things on an as needed basis. You won't get bulk discounts. You won't get other types of incentives, but your cash is a very sensitive thing. The cash position of an early company is very sensitive and it's very delicate, and you err on the side of spending more later to save a couple of bucks now. You've got to keep your head above water, but don't let that get in the way of number three, which is you have to make sure to invest when it's necessary. And this is especially true of personnel. Do not skimp on personnel. You have to be able to invest while budgeting in things that will help your company grow. Again, take this into consideration when thinking about number one, which is focusing on revenue. So the earlier you are in business, if you're going to risk with something that's going to directly affect revenue. Things such as a commission-based salesperson or a marketing plan. Don't be buying stupid things like a brand new company truck that you use for personal reasons, thinking that that's a company expense and that's going to help the company. It probably will to some extent. Do that in years 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever, when you have a healthy net profit. Don't be doing it year one. Number 4, this is the fourth way that you can avoid the pitfall of your business crashing and burning from poor financial management. And that is when owners and founders rely too much on income from the business. Give yourself a runway, whether it's mounting savings or living off of less, where you don't rely too heavily on income from the business. There's two main reasons why you shouldn't do this. One, it's a lot better decision to reinvest any type of profits or as much of the profits as possible year one in your business. When you put water in the form of cash on your business in the early stages, it is worth probably 10x what that same amount of water or cash is worth years down the road. There's something magical about reinvesting capital into an early business that allows it to scale quickly. Do as much as you can for the owners and founders to not rely or avoid relying on income from the business. The second main reason why that's helpful is it just puts you in a better cash position. It allows you so that not only are you reinvesting capital, but when as the owner and founder, you don't rely on that income, it takes so much pressure off of the performance of the business early on, which is required for its success. All right, number 5, this is the fifth thing that will help you avoid the pitfall of a failing business due to poor financial management. Do not undercapitalize your business. And what that means is when you start it, make sure that you start it with enough money. If you're going to err on the side of having a couple of extra bucks in savings so that you can pay for things that are unexpected or that pop up. A new business is so much more volatile and it's so much more sensitive to market conditions and other changes than as an established business. So make sure that you're properly capitalized. I'm going to go run through those real quick before we move on to the second reason why businesses fail. So number one reason why businesses fail is because of lack of cash flow or poor financial management. To get around that, number one, focus on revenue. Number two, make sure you don't overspend, especially in the early days. Number three, which sounds the opposite of number two, make sure that you do invest when it's necessary for the growth of your business. Number four, make sure the owners or founders aren't relying too much on business income to support themselves. And number five, make sure to not undercapitalize. The second most common reason why businesses fail is because of a lack of market demand or product market fit. I grew up in a really small farming community. There were about 2,000 to 3,000 people that lived there, mostly farmers or related industries. I was away at college and I'd come back every year and a half or so for the holidays or whatever to visit my family. I was going to college out of state. And it was funny because there was this one location that every time I came back, it was a new restaurant and it was in the same building and it was a different restaurant. And every year for probably 5 or 6 years, I came back into the town and I noticed the name had changed. And it wasn't the same people. I learned that just decided to change the name of the restaurant. It was new owners that took over the space. And then within 8 months to a year, it would be another owner trying their hand again at establishing a restaurant in this really small town. And after a number of years, it hit me that while they continued to try, it wasn't their fault in terms of having the geo for this restaurant to work necessarily. It wasn't the food. It probably wasn't the management. It was a lack of product market fit. There just wasn't a market. And no matter the food, no matter how much work went into the signage, into the marketing, into the personnel, into all these things, it wasn't their fault besides them trying to make a restaurant work when there was no product market fit. Now, here's the flip side of that. A lot of us are looking for the newest idea. We're looking for something that you're going to get a patent or some type of IP on. And those things are very important, only if there's a product market fit. I'm involved in a company that has several patents. And for years, we've been trying to find this product market fit. And I think we're getting there. But when you see a market that is saturated with competition, don't necessarily shy away from it for that fact alone. Don't think that you have to do something that's never been done. Those type of one-off ideas are so rare that it would take so much information and it would take so much time researching to determine if there's a product market fit. And it's likely, I've had people that I've consulted with that have told me, no, my business is unique. I don't have any competitors. That's just, it's simply not true. So as you're thinking about this, as you're thinking about starting your business, I'm not saying go into a market that's completely saturated. What I'm saying is there's safety in knowing that there's a product market fit. And I think the easier move is not to try to come up with something that has never been done before. Find a unique way to position your company, your product, or your service so that while you're still competing with a large group of people or at least a couple of companies, that you can set yourself apart, not by doing that but based on the exact market, by doing it within the market and having your own niche and holding yourself out to be a specific type of product or service provider through marketing, culture, personnel, whatever it is. Number 3 of the top 3 reasons why businesses fail, and that is due to ineffective leadership and management. I really like this one, and this of the 3 is the least scary to me, and here's why. As the entrepreneur, as the owner, as the founder, this is the one that arguably you have the most control over. You can become better and you can adjust. So being able to adjust to the first two reasons is huge to the success of the business. And that depends directly on the effectiveness of the leadership and management of the company. So not only that, so think about that. What I'm saying is that if you have effective leadership and management, you're knocking out reasons 1 and 2, poor financial management and lack of product market fit, just because of your leadership. You're pivoting and you're changing and you're adjusting. Not only that, but effective leaders are able to make adjustments when any other market or any other change comes along. In order to do this, you have to lead with a vision. In order to be an effective leader, you have to get people on board. One of my favorite quotes is from Simon Sinek. He wrote a couple of books, Start With Why, The Infinite Game, both highly recommended. He said, if you hire people just because they can do a job, they'll work for your money. But if you hire people who believe what you believe, they'll work for you with blood, sweat, and tears. And this is what you're looking for, especially with those first couple of key hires when you start your business. So when you're leading your company, make sure that you start with the vision and the purpose. And it's never money. I'm telling you, money is always it means to an end. It's never the end of itself. A lot of people say, I didn't grow up with money. I've always been scared. So I want to amass an amazing amount of wealth so I don't deal with that anymore. Well, it's not the money that you're after. It's that feeling of security. It's being able to support your family. It's being able to create jobs. It's not the money in and of itself. So make sure that you lead with a vision. You also, this is a problem that a lot of entrepreneurs have. You also must stay focused for several years. You have to be 100% focused. This is really hard for entrepreneurs because we're always wanting to start a new business. We get distracted by different business ideas. I know because I'm like that. But one of the best things that I did was work for years in one business with 100% of my focus and attention. It's really hard for us to do. I had an individual that I was consulting that he called me up. He said, "Hey, Allan, I need some help. My business ideas. Let's schedule a time." I said, "Absolutely. Come by my office." He got to my office. He dropped this heavy notebook on my desk and said, "Okay, Allan, I need you to help me decide which business idea I should pursue." And I said, "Okay, perfect. So before we get started, I want you to know that most businesses succeed or fail based on execution and not based on the idea. So just know that at the outset, but I have no problem going through these ideas with you and let you know what I think." He went through probably 10 or 12 of them. And I mentioned 2 or 3 that I said, "Hey, I think those are a little more viable, a little higher ceiling," or whatever the reason were for me choosing those as more viable ideas. And I said, "But here's the most important thing, and it's probably not something that you want to hear. But what's most important is that you pick one of these and that you don't burn the book, you don't destroy it, but you put it on a really high shelf and you forget every other one of those ideas. And you put your time and attention 100% into one business. And here's the kicker. You do it not until it is sustainable without your input and your direct leadership, but you have to put 100% of your time and attention into your first business until it will grow without 100% of your time and attention. That's the kicker, is that it can't just survive. It has to be able to grow, because a business that isn't growing is dying. So you have to stay focused. Here's another thing about leadership. This is a great thing, is that a business will never achieve a level of status or a level of success that is above that of its leaders. So if there's a founder or owner that's still involved, that business will never surpass the level of that individual that's running the company. The reason why I really like this is because we have 100% control over our growth and our success. So as owners and entrepreneurs, we have to continue to grow. We have to continue to read, listen to podcasts like this one. We have to find mentors. We have to rub shoulders with successful people. And that's my last point here regarding this element, is that owners need a mentor. They need to rub shoulders with people that they want to become like. It feels good to be a big fish in a small pond, but it benefits you more to be a small fish in a big pond. So make sure that you reach out and find mentors that are in a position where you want to be. Don't take advice from people you wouldn't trade places with. I always say this. I wouldn't trade places with anybody. I love my life, but I always think about this. If somebody is giving me financial advice and they make less money than I do, or they have less money than I have, I'm not going to take advice from them. I'm not going to be rude to them. I'm not going to tell them that, like, hey, I'm not going to listen to you because I make more money than you. I'll just say, okay, I appreciate that. And I'm not going to pay it any other attention. Think about that. Don't take advice about entrepreneurship from people that aren't entrepreneurs. Find a mentor, find someone that's where you want to be, and make sure to spend time with them. Ultimately, we've covered a lot today, but here's probably the most important thing I'm going to say. Start your business. Regardless of all these things, start your business. Because what's going to happen is there's always going to be a reason not to. But there's one really big reason why you should. And that is, at the end of your life, you're going to regret more the things that you didn't do than the things that you did do. You're not going to regret the mistakes at the end of your life. You're going to regret the things that you wanted to do and that you never tried. Studies show that 29% of the founders with failed startups went on to find incredible success in other companies that they started. That's the great news. And I've experienced that. A lot of people don't know that my very first company, which was called Freedom Pest Control, actually failed. It never got off the ground. I wasted a bunch of money and we never had any revenue. And I've failed multiple times since then. I don't talk about my failures very much, but they're a huge part of my life. Here we've discussed the ways to avoid failure. But if nothing else, you're either going to learn or you're going to win. That's how I look at failure. You're either going to learn or you're going to win. So don't let these reasons terrify you, intimidate you. The reason why I wanted to point them out today and at this time is because I think things that we're aware of are a lot less scary than the things that we're not. I think fear of the unknown drives so much of our behavior. If you think of like the horror movies, the movie's so much more scary before you know what the monster is or the alien or the axe murder or whatever it is. Before there's a name and a face to your problems, it's much scarier. So what did we do today? We gave a name and a face to what should be your top fears in starting a business. And not only that, we talked about specific ways that you can defeat those monsters and overcome your fears and have a successful business and a successful entrepreneur experience. I'm here for you. If you need me, reach out. I'm happy to help. Make sure to go to my Instagram, Real Allan Draper. You can also go to my website, schedule an appointment to chat with me for 15 minutes. I'm an angel investor looking for new companies to invest in. And even if there's not a fit there, I'm happy to give you my 2 cents about your business idea and offer you a couple of ideas that will help you. I appreciate your time, and we'll catch you next time.
If you have enjoyed today's podcast, please leave us a rating. And for daily inspiration and business tips, follow Allan on Instagram. Until next time, remember, we build the future one entrepreneur at a time.